Okay, I wanted to make sure. I think I want to zoom this in a little bit. I am not using my regular camera again because I forgot it. And I was having lighting issues with it. So this is fine. Scooting over a little, as you can tell, I still have the COVID voice, but it is getting much better each day. Welcome everyone. Thank you. We're back to more normal content, not talking about corrupt actors on the LNC, though I'm sure we'll be talking about them again. Before we get started, like to, in case you did not watch the last show, you know Sean Dempsey's been, and I'm so grateful for it. Oh, I saw that weird like zoom in trying to focus. He's been a longtime sponsor of the show. He's an author, but everything I've promoted by him before has been libertarian oriented children's books. He's from New Hampshire, so obviously he's raising a libertarian family. But this is an investor's book. Now, he realizes investments, I'm going to be completely honest with you, are not my thing. But my husband's probably going to take a good read at it. That's more his thing. But I love his children's book, so I'm sure this is awesome. I am so grateful to Sean for all of his support of his all the support he has given me. Remember, I still have a little bit of COVID brain, so I'm not going to be exactly on the ball with everything. We are going to get right into the Matt Walsh clips in a moment. But first, I'd like to ask you, if you have not subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe. And I wouldn't mind a little likety-like, in the share, but please don't feel obligated, but I really would like you to subscribe. And if you have multiple YouTube channels, like me, subscribe with them all. Why not? It doesn't cost you a darned thing. You can also follow me on the Twitters. I am Karen Ann Harlow, spelled that unusual way. Lately, it's been a lot of LP stuff, but not so sure how long that's going to last. And what I mean by that is you can only talk about something for so long and then you move on to another subject, not claiming like my involvement in the LP, no matter what this majority corrupt LNC does, is not stopping me. In fact, it puts the jet fires under me. Like, coddling me and leaving me alone is probably like the best thing they could have done. Is getting me all pissed off. Just inspires me. It just inspires me. But anyway, last but not least is, if you've watched the show before and you enjoy this type of content, if you would consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. I did get a new patron last time, and I am so grateful. I cannot tell you how grateful I am and how happy it makes me when I get that email notification, because obviously those who think the Libertarian Party exists to support Trump, they kind of don't like me so much anymore. It just goes to show you hypocrisy. They loved me when my target was somebody they didn't like, but when I was skewering their fish, they didn't like them apples. That was a lot of mixing of metaphors there. Where else are you going to get that? Please become a patron at patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. Okay, let's do the setup for the Matt Walsh show. I want to give you a little bit of my, and I'm sorry for the like constant auto-focusing of my webcam. I don't know why it's doing that. And it's bugging me because my hair is like this. I need to get it cut too. It's like all snaggletooth. Forget it. We'll just leave it in the pack. It's all snaggletooth. Can't find a good hairdresser. My first Libertarian convention, and it was funny, it was right after I dyed my hair pink. I dyed my hair pink in February 2015, I think. So we're coming on 10 years that I've had pink hair, because it was right before the very first Libertarian Party convention I'd ever been to, which was the Libertarian Party of Colorado convention in Aurora. And they had this great theater seating, but I was a brand new Libertarian. I'd become one in September of 2014, and I went to the convention as a delegate for the first time. And there was a lady who was asking for signatures, I think, for a ballot initiative to have what they call in Canada medical aid in dying, but basically doctor assisted euthanasia or suicide, whatever you'd like to call it. I just know I just got demonetized. I really would appreciate super chats because the subjects I've been covering lately do not get monetized. But I want to admit to you right up front, you know, us libertarians, we like to pretend like we are so sure about everything. Like we are just right, we are sure, we have no questions. I'm not that kind of libertarian. I'm going to tell you when I struggle with something. Even though I might know it's perfectly libertarian, I still struggle with this. So at this very first convention, there was a lady who was passing this out, which it's now legal in Colorado under certain conditions to have medical aid in dying. But they were trying to get it passed then. And I was a libertarian at that point, and I wouldn't sign the petition because maybe it's my Christian background. Maybe it's just that I honor life so much. I'm not claiming other people don't, but I don't know. I have, you know, it's the Christian background, the image bearer of God sort of things. And I had been just struggling with this issue. And Matt is going to bring up a lot of very good points and things that I struggle with. And H. Reardon, I see that I am talking to people in chat. That's what I do. We're a community. I'm not sure why you're asking Daniel that. If it's supposed to be some kind of slam against me, take it elsewhere. I get plenty of slam on Twitter. If I'm misunderstanding you, I apologize. But otherwise, I curate my life with positivity. And I don't purposely let Satan into my life. So, yeah, CK Nightlighter, let me put this up here. He said, I mean, if we're talking about someone with ALS or stage 4 cancer, it's just not humane to keep someone alive who doesn't want to be. But why does it have to be those things? Why can't it just be? These are the questions I struggle with. I'm not making an argument here because I am telling you guys very honestly, I have a lot of problems with this issue. What if somebody's perfectly healthy and they're just like, I'm done? And part of the problem of it, I think, is when you're mixing it in with medicine and calling it medicine. I mean, I think it's absolutely ridiculous to make suicide a crime, for one thing. What are you going to do to them if they succeed? You know? Are you going to kill them? And then if they don't, what, you've just given them additional reasons? And then sometimes there are people who have loved ones that just don't want to stick around anymore. If you truly own your life, as libertarians believe, I believe that you have the right to say, you know what, I've had enough. It's not a path I would choose, and it's probably mostly due to a religious conviction, but I do struggle with it because I also see the opportunities for abuse. Pretty soon, the right to die becomes the obligation to die, and the ones that get targeted are the most vulnerable. People who are very sick, who feel, who get, even if it's not a conscience pressure, to rid their families of burdens, or people who are just severely depressed. and part of this problem is our panic over opioids and things like that, where there is not sufficient palliative care and people fear pain. I had nurses come up to me, I remember at an Alaska convention where I had legalized recreational heroin buttons, not my usual cocaine buttons, the heroin buttons. And she's like, oh my God, I work in hospice. If I could get some heroin for some of my people for their last day, I would do it in a heartbeat. That it's an underground scandal in this country that we do not have sufficient palliative care. I can tell you we don't have sufficient pain care for people who are in pain that aren't in terminal stages. I have spinal stenosis. At times, that pain cannot be controlled any other way other than through very, very strong pain medication, and I can't get it anymore. So I do live in fear of, I get these outbreaks of it, I guess is the way to call it, but they always go away. But one day they might not. Am I going to have to live in that pain? And part of the problem, again, is inserting the states, because such in Canada, which is what Matt is going to be dealing with, you have socialized medicine. So, people become disposable. They just become bean counter statistics, that those last 2 days of life, which can be extraordinarily precious because maybe relationships will be repaired. See, I think things have eternal consequence. I understand an atheist might feel differently, but you never know what can happen in those last moments. So I really, really struggle with this issue. So I telling you right up front my weakness. Now we're going to listen to Matt. And Matt is watching an interview with this, I'm going to put doctor in quotes, in Canada, because I agree with Matt. She's a ghoul. She is a ghoul. All she does is euthanasia on humans and abortion. I'm sorry, and she laughs about it in like this serial killer kind of way. It's really quite disconcerting. So perhaps the answer is that there be an entirely new profession and we don't call it medicine. And different laws to make it easier for a loved one to assist you. Because as Matt said, he'd rather be tortured by the Taliban than having this grinning ghoul be the last thing he ever saw as he shuffled off this mortal coil. And I agree with him. This woman is deeply, deeply disturbing. Now, the lady that is interviewing her is a disabled woman. So, obviously, one of the people that are feeling at threat that there's an obligation for them to die in Canada. So let's watch the first clip, shall we? 1 second.
Weeb was featured in a recent documentary for the BBC by journalist Liz Carr, who set out to investigate the issue of so-called assisted dying. Now, Carr is disabled herself and approaches the topic from a very skeptical viewpoint. She's worried, and she should be, that the proliferation and normalization of euthanasia is putting disabled people like herself at risk. And it is.
And I think that's absolutely true. I mean, we've heard the stories. A lot of these people with disabilities already feel guilt that there's some kind of burden on their family, and then they start to feel like they're a burden on society, which could lead to mental health issues, which then lead to them feeling like they're not as valued because they're not perfect. That's a big concern to me. And I think it should be a big concern to you, particularly if you have a disabled loved one. Okay, here's we're going on to clip 2.
How many maid deaths have you been involved with?
Over 400.
That sounds like a lot. Is that what you do now? Like, is that the main
No,
thing?
I still run a contraception and abortion clinic in addition to my maid work.
So she has killed 400 people through euthanasia, in addition to the presumably hundreds of abortions she's performed in her career. This woman has single-handedly killed the population of a small town. And no human being is meant to experience that much death, much less administer it.
Okay, let me stop here for a second, because there is a point I made here about, believe it or not, about the death penalty. And I'm not going to the larger screen because I'll lose my spot here if I do this. But one reason why I'm against the death penalty, besides the fact that the state should not be murdering its own citizens, is that it makes monsters of the people who have to administer it. Even if you're talking, let's say you're talking about an innocent person that got put to death. Obviously, they're a victim. But the people, and I'm not saying they're forced to administer it, but when you're in a society that says it's okay, it becomes an acceptable job. And I think it takes a great psychic toll on the executioners. I think it makes them less than human, that a little bit of their humanity dies each time. That's why we even understood that psychologically when there used to be firing squads, that everyone would shoot at once so that no one conscience bore the weight of knowing they killed somebody. But not so here. Now, I think this woman is monstrous to begin with, but this is turning her into even more of a monster.
If you have a conscience, this much death and misery would weigh heavily on your mind. You would be crushed by it. You'd be incapacitated by it. That's how a normal person with a soul would respond. But Ellen Wiebe doesn't feel that way. In fact, she is positively giddy. The very idea of human suffering makes her laugh.
Okay, I didn't clip out this part, but she did literally laugh. Like, she was talking to this disabled woman, and she goes, well, I could tell right now you love life, you want to live, but what if one day you had unbearable suffering? Like, that's like literally how she said it. And I'm like, this woman is a psychopath. There is something really, really wrong with her. Next one.
Do you think the number one reason that people want MAID?
The number one reason is autonomy, control.
And what?
And everybody's different in what they think of as autonomy and control.
Yeah. So that would be about not wanting to lose that in their lives.
Yes, control. They desperately want control. Like, they want to say, it's now. And even we say, okay, well, I can get back here at 7:00. Is that okay? And they'll say yes, and they'll be so grateful that they can skip the last 2 days of their life. And I look at it and think, what you really needed was some more drugs. But you want my drugs, I'll give them to you.
You can see by her expressions how disturbing this woman is. Now, here's where the libertarian issues come in, much more so. I agree with her, actually, and Matt does scoff this. It is about control. And if we want to be pure libertarians, then that's the ultimate control, isn't it? To determine that that's enough. Now, I'm not going to say that doesn't bother me. That deeply bothers me. But the logic of it, from a libertarian point of view, is I think, unassailable. Now, do I think there should be people and charities dedicated to trying to talk to people about other options? Of course I do. Just like I think people need to have all the information at their fingertips about adoption and other options they have when they're faced with a crisis pregnancy. When you're faced with any kind of life crisis, I think there needs to be fully informed consent. And it just bothered me. It's like, well, I can be back here at 7, after I go pick up the milk and eggs. Can I get a counselor to talk to you first? Have you explored other options? Like, not this laying out everything on the table. She was just like, I can fit killing you into my day. I think I got 15 minutes to kill you. I struggle with this, as if I put aside my emotions, the pure libertarian in me says, that's your choice. But I think that's a terrible choice. And that's another problem that I think a lot of libertarians have, where we just like to scream about choice. Like, I'm dealing with some anti-Semites on my Twitter feed today. Well, I was dealing with them. As they out themselves, I get rid of them. Not talking about people who disagree with the policies of Israel. I'm talking about genuine anti-Semites that, like, boil it down to the individual Jewish person. They can go yeet themselves. I don't even know how I'd have libertarians come in defending, well, that's free speech. Certainly it's free speech. You can have bigotry to whoever you want, but that doesn't make it good. Just because you have the right to do something doesn't make it good. It doesn't make it the best decision. As a libertarian, I have the right now, not under laws of this country, but say we were in Libertopia, to go out and buy a speedball. Is that the best decision I could make? No. And we often confuse in libertarianism the idea that just because you can do something, you should do something. And not only because you can do something, you should do something, everyone should celebrate it. That if you have the right to do it, it must automatically be good. And that is not what libertarianism teaches. So I see these so-called anarchists, and I will call them so-called anarchists. Normally it's anarchists telling minarchists you're not real libertarians. For once, this is an anarchist, me going after some other anarchists. You aren't a real anarchist if you don't believe in voluntary agreements and contracts. I don't even know how I got from assisted suicide to that. It was people going, oh, I can't believe you're enforcing a contract. What kind of anarchist are you? That's one of the most anarchist things you can do, is to hold people to agreements they made. I don't want to live in Thunderdome. I don't know how I got on that. It's just the fake anarchists. Those are, when you look up anarchy in the dictionary and you get that really bad definition of chaos and lawlessness and people are envisioning Molotov cocktails, those are the type of people that give the rest of us who are like, I'd be the best neighbor you had, a bad name. No rulers doesn't mean no rules. It's self-rule. It's the highest form of control. People who are degenerates and have no self-control cannot be an anarchist because they're too frickin' immature. Next clip.
Now, notice something, because this is very interesting. She did not say that people choose euthanasia because they want to end their suffering. She didn't say that. She even acknowledges that in most cases, there are drugs that could do that. I mean, drugs that could keep you alive for the time being, while also ending or at least greatly mitigating your physical suffering. So she says that they choose euthanasia because they want to take control. And she returns to this theme a couple of times in the interview.
Okay, I'm sorry there's been a bit of an echo because I've forgotten to hit mute mic while he's playing. I'm trying to get better at doing that. Apologies. But at least you don't have me talking with the mute button on and you guys having to scream at me that you can't hear. I stopped for several reasons. One is for copyright reasons, but for another is here's where Matt and I will part ways. He is scoffing at the idea of the fact that some people choose this is due to control over their own lives. Matt really does have a disdain, and he thinks it's very inherently selfish to want to control over your own life. Now, he doesn't bring in, oh, this could cause pain to a loved one or anything like that, because obviously all of those factors should come into play. But even if you were the only person on a desert island, except for with this crazed maniac doctor, quote unquote, he still thinks there is something inherently wrong and selfish and evil about wanting to control your own life, particularly when the expiration date is already stamped as 2 days later. I can see having a much more jaded view of it if you were just perfectly healthy and just decided, nah fam, I'm done. But in the example that he is talking about and that Dr. Gould was talking about was somebody who had 2 days left to live. Well, maybe they don't want to live it in a drugged stupor. Maybe they know that their self-awareness will become so greatly diminished that that is how they want to go out. But Matt just inherently scoffs at that. Now, it could be his religious background, because I understand that very conservative Christianity would say that is a sin. But I don't think this is a religious thing. I think this is just an inherent philosophical thing with him, that he views us as like some kind of big organism, which in a way he does. Like he's always talking about society as if society is a thing that has its own will and good. And as a radical individualist, I don't believe that. So his scoffing at the fact that someone who is going to die in 2 days doesn't want to live those last 2 days in a controlled, medicated stupor. And I've seen some of these videos. If you want to, I'm not recommending that you do this, but there are videos, they're very educational on YouTube of what dying in hospice actually looks like. And it is horrifying. Some people go into like these spasmodic, just like terrors. Some people are peaceful. But to want to control that for your own dignity, which he'll also go on to scoff at, this is where the libertarian in me rebels. That yes, you absolutely have a right to do that. I watched some of those hospice videos, and they deeply, deeply troubled and disturbed me.
And I'll say that at least on this topic, she is an expert. Okay, she's an expert in killing people, and so I would trust her judgment on that at least. She says they're doing it because they want to take control. And I think she's exactly right. In fact, I have made that precise point many times in the past about this subject. To hear it repeated by an administrator of euthanasia is pretty compelling confirmation.
Okay, we're going to go back to the main one because CK Nightlighter said he saw this with a loved one. You hear this from even veterinarians. I'm not comparing people to animals, but we are a species of animal, whether, made in the image of God or not, where veterinarians will say that they have euthanized dogs that just go peacefully. They're riddled with cancer. They are ready. But they've also euthanized dogs that the owners, for some reason, whatever it might be, who fought it to the end. And that it was horrible. And most of the time, those owners don't even stay to be there with their pet. Again, we're not pets. But envisioning this just peaceful floating away isn't the case most of the time. And if you don't believe me, I encourage you to watch some of these hospice videos. And these are people on palliative care. It can be quite terrible. And I can understand not wanting to go through that, particularly if you have made peace with everything in your life and you are ready. That is your choice. Okay, we have one last clip.
It's like if you're on a plane that's in the process of crashing and you take control of the situation by jumping out of the plane at 30,000 feet without a parachute. You're still falling to your death. You haven't taken control of anything at all. Now, you're tumbling uncontrollably to your own death. The only thing you've achieved, the only thing, is that now, rather than being the victim of a tragic accident, your death will forever be recorded as a suicide.
Okay, we're going to stop here again for copyright reasons and because I want to comment a little bit. Yes, perhaps. But to me, that's an academic distinction. I mean, there are some plane crashes that are unsurvivable. And if you're in an and I don't like talking about this at all, because those of you who don't know, I have a terrible phobia of flying. The last thing I should be talking about is plane crashes. And of course, I watch marathons of air disasters the week before I fly because, I'm just like that. I'm just twisted like that. But say you decide, you know what? I want to feel what it's like to fly through the air free before I go, rather than dying in a fiery crash at the bottom of a mountain or whatever it is. That's your choice. And the fact that one would be considered an accident and one would be considered technically suicide, I think is such an academic distinction as to be stupid, as to be literally and utterly stupid. But I also want to point here, he goes, you haven't taken control of anything. Okay, in that specific scenario, well, I think you have, but let's consider another scenario. Let's consider, and I just want to answer Daniel's tweet here. I know there are instances of people surviving otherwise fatal plummets, but a person has the right to decide, I just don't want to even go through that. There's a particular story of a young girl, you may have heard of it, where there was a fatal crash. Everyone died but her in the Amazon forest. And the fact that she survived, like she was up in the tree for a while, and she had to go through with like a broken leg, 3 weeks like of surviving in the Amazon. I mean, it was really quite an incredible story. I might be exaggerating some of the facts because it's been a while since I watched it. But some people may just not want to deal with that. And stuff, but that is such a good question. Stuff Bud Does says, were those who jumped from the World Trade Center on 9/11 suicides? He would say, yes, I guess you're just supposed to burn to death. Guess you were just supposed to burn to death. That is such a good question. But this is going to have to deal with what he's going to say next. But he goes, you're not really taking control of anything. What about, speaking of 9/11, was it flight, oh, help me out, COVID brain, 93, 63? The flight that ended up crashing, but that was probably headed towards the White House, where those people decided they were going to try to take control of the situation. Remember, let's roll, those ones. They had a tiny, tiny chance of survival. Yeah, Flight 93. Those of you who don't believe any of that happened, I'm not here to argue with you about that. I believe it happened. So we'll leave it at that. We're not going to deal with World Trade Center 7. We're not doing with any of that, but Flight 93. Were they suicides? Their chances were really, really slim. And they decided to take control of a situation. I think your ultra pious, ultra arrogant perceptions and your perceived authority over other people are really getting the best of you, Matt. Okay, let's play the rest of this clip.
But you're just as dead either way. The manner of your death is almost exactly the same, but now you took your own life. There's no control there. I mean, you hear about someone taking control when they're
Stopping again, and we'll start right back up. Yes, you are. You might not like the control they took, but they took control. If you do nothing, inevitably you're going to crash on the ground. And you decide instead, though if you've been in an airliner, there's not like an exit door you can just open. But let's just like pretend you could just like open the window and jump out. Yeah, you've taken control. You might not like the control that person has taken, but it is just absolutely stupid to say they didn't take control. They most obviously did.
plane's about to crash, what in your head, what that would mean is like they seize control of the plane and they stop it from crashing. That's taking control. But if you're still dead at the end of it, you have not taken control.
Well, in fact, you have. You've taken control of the way you're going to die. Now, of course, trying to stop it, like with the Flight 93 situation, that's another way to take control. He's acting like there's only one way to take control, and that the only way you can say you actually took control is when you don't die. You know? Are you taking control? Let's do, I hate doing these kind of hypotheticals because libertarians love them and I hate them. But let's say you know you're going to die. Your murderer's right in front of you. And they go, would you rather die this way or this way? If you don't pick, I'm just going to pick one. And you pick one. Have you taken a form of control? Yeah, you have. So while I admit this is a subject I struggle with, as I've been very, very honest with you, in the situations that have come up in this video, I haven't. But in general, I think libertarians who pretend, well, maybe some aren't pretending. I shouldn't assume that. But libertarians who act like this isn't a hard issue for a lot of people, I don't think are really seriously grappling with libertarian issues. And I think we need to do a whole lot more serious grappling with libertarian issues. And I am going to get a little LNC here. We need to do a lot more of that rather than asking Trump to bend over and for us to, you know, eat his ass. I think that might be a better use of libertarian time. Sorry, couldn't help it. Not sorry. All right, that's going to be it for this evening. I have got a bunch of shows lined up. They're not all Matt Walsh, though a lot of them are, because I watch them. I find Matt Walsh entertaining, even though I don't agree with him. But there are some others, and I want to get back to some historical shows. And I've got 2 other shows to promote to you. And one last plea. Actually, I'll do the last plea first. It's twofold. Because of the subject matter of this video, there is no way in heck I am getting monetized. Not that my videos make a great deal of money anyway, but even like a $5 super chat, that would pay for what I'd get monetized for this video. So I really would appreciate a super thanks or a super chat. It's greatly, greatly appreciated. And of course, please subscribe. That's free. If you really do enjoy my content, patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month. I'm in the legacy program that still allows that, though of course I obviously would appreciate higher. And if you're a top tier patron, I do promote your work, be it another YouTube channel, a business, a book, whatever. It doesn't even have to be a liberty work. It just can't be anti-liberty. Let's just put it that way. And my top tiers can also ask a question that I'll do my best, if it's within my wheelhouse at all, to give my answer to. I had a top tier patron for a while that did that. If you want to go back on my back catalog, look for the video called "Does Libertarianism Allow Voluntary Slavery?" It's another very difficult topic. I think I did decent at grappling. So you might want to go watch that. If I remember, I'll stick it up top here. It's one of the episodes I'm most proud of that was given to me by one of my top patrons at the time. The other two channels I have, three. Oh my God, I'm becoming one of those YouTubers. One of them isn't just mine. It's me and Mike Seebeck. If you enjoy really irreverent talk about rules. I know that sounds so weird, but I used to do an end of the world podcast called the Preterist Podcast, and it was freaking hilarious. If I can make the end of the world hilarious, I can make Robert's Rules of Order filthy, and that's what we do. So that channel is Cult of RONR, which stands for Robert's Rules of Order Newly Revised. Go subscribe. I'd appreciate it. I have two new channels, though. One is kind of for my business, which is the Pink Parliamentarian, and the channel's just called Pink Parliamentarian. Because I'm not doing free parliamentary work anymore, except for in some rare circumstances. But there's going to be educational videos on there where I'll answer, like, let me give you a simple question that I'll answer, and that's all the video will be. What happens if a motion passes, but it didn't get a second? Things like that. I have a TikTok channel for that as well. It's going to be really short little lessons, maybe some longer form ones. And then one I have not started yet, but I am so excited. I started doing my first research project on it. I have someone who is designing graphics for me, and you could subscribe now, even though there's no videos on it yet. There will be soon, and it's called Jurassic Dictionary. And what it is going to be about is dying or dead words, and if they're connected with a dead profession, because a lot of our words come from our work. I'll talk about that a little bit. It's not going to be super scholarly. It's going to be me just rapping about, like, think of this and think of that. And you know how much I love history and how much I love words. So if you go subscribe to those ahead of time, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it, and I am going to answer the last question, which is by Firefish, who I can tell is not a regular listener to the channel. Welcome, Firefish. I am a Chase Oliver voter. I am a libertarian. I would rather eat my own foot out of a bear trap than vote for either Kamala or Trump. I hope I didn't stutter on that. Have a good night. Mi guapas de libertad. Oops, need this.
You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business, not because they want to